Hello and welcome to the Only Endometriosis podcast you need, and to this special series where I walk my own recovery path in real time with you. Before we dive in, a gentle reminder, I'm not a doctor. I'm a women's health therapist who's lived with endometriosis and managed my own symptoms for more than 2 decades, and I've supported hundreds of women through the twists and turns of this condition. I know my body, I know my triggers, my patterns, and the little whispers that tell me when things are flaring, and I know the red flags that mean it's time to get urgent medical help. I'm doing this journey with proper medical support from my GP. What I'm sharing here is my lived experience. This is not a blueprint, it's not a prescription, and it's not a promise of what will work for you. The tools I use are the tools I trust for my own body. Endometriosis shows up differently in every woman, and what's soothing for me may not be right for you. So please, as you listen, take what resonates and leave what doesn't. Seek your own advice, follow your own instincts, and remember that your path will be as unique and sacred as your body is. This is one woman's story, raw, honest, and shared in the hope that it helps you feel a little less alone as you walk your own path. Hello there, and welcome to the latest episode of the Only Endometriosis podcast you need. In this episode, we're going to be looking at Betwixtmas. So this is as if I was my client. This is as if I was having an appointment after the clinic had reopened after the Christmas break. Just to remind you that this has been recorded retrospectively, so it's a few weeks after the appointment would have taken place, but I'm using notes that I took at the time. So it's as if I had the appointment as it should have happened. I'm going to try not to put any slant, knowing what I know and experiencing what I've experienced since the notes. So this is going to try and be as absolutely honest and as candid as I could from that time. So just for a bit of context, my clinic space was shut between Christmas and New Year. And I know that for a lot of my clients, this Christmas break, this Betwixtmas, was actually quite a difficult time. There was a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry around what it would hold for clients, because if you're dealing with chronic symptoms, especially if you're getting support with them as well, and that support is quite intense, which it is for a couple of my clients, it can feel as if that gap in between Christmas, that gap in between when everybody's on holiday, when everybody's expecting things, when you're expecting rest and relaxation, that time can actually be quite triggering for some, especially if some of the environments that you're in add to your symptoms. If you can't manage to get time off, if you're doing things, meeting people, seeing people the whole Christmas, New Year period, then it can actually be quite triggering. And I experienced this as well. Christmas, my Christmases have changed massively these last 2 years, for the better, I will add, but it brings with it different stress, and it doesn't matter how much you love your family, it doesn't matter how much you love your home and your space, there can be a lot of pressure during that time. So Betwixtmas is this kind of, I don't know where I picked this Betwixtmas up. I think I saw it on a meme somewhere. But it can be quite, it should be restful. It should be a time where we can sit back and say, do you know what? I mean, I said so myself in the last podcast, I actually took time off between Christmas for the first time in a long time. I shut everything down, the clinic space. I actually left one clinic space, and my new clinic space opened in January, so it should have been a restful time, but often it isn't. It's just different pressures, and those pressures can bring with them different symptoms, different flaring triggers as well. It can be very charged. So my Christmas wasn't charged, but there was different stresses. But I did manage to take some time off in terms of a work perspective. So in terms of my clinic, I shut the doors on my clinic. Moving to a new space helped as well, because I was able to literally shut the door and just think, okay, this is a new time, this is new energy, let's just take it easy for the next 2 weeks. But then we had family commitments. So we had family travelling from overseas to stay, we had guests coming from overseas to stay, we had local family coming at various points during that break. So there was a lot of different things. There was a lot of different things to focus on. We had to make sure we had all the food, that Christmas meal preparation. We had one vegetarian, which is fine, but again, it just adds to the to-do list in your mind. And even if you are feeling really excited, and even if you are feeling really happy about it all, you are allowed for these symptoms to flare. You are allowed to still take time. And that's one of the things that I said to my clients who were particularly worried about this time, who were particularly anxious about making sure they had time for themselves, is that it's okay to say no. It's okay to have boundaries in place and set boundaries out about how you want your time to be. We can't control it all, and for a lot of us with chronic conditions, it can be that lack of feeling of control that makes symptoms worse. So what we do is focus on the things that we can control. So all the way through the 2 weeks between Christmas and New Year, so between my clinic shutting and this appointment, I tracked my triggers, I tracked my symptoms, and I could tell when things were flaring. I had a lot of pain during this time. The inflammation was, some days it was huge. Of course it's bloating, I suppose, but on some days my stomach was so uncomfortable, and I was able to just take a step back. I talked to my husband about it. He completely gets what's going on, so I'm able to say, look, do you know what, I just need an hour, or do you know what, I know we're going out tonight, but I just can't face it. So it's a no from me, and that's fine. You're absolutely allowed to say that. And actually, a lot of us struggle, especially if we're people pleasers, especially if we have anxiety around what people think, especially, and I've said this so many times before, if you're struggling with a chronic health condition like endometriosis, a lot of women are overachievers or overperformers because we feel as if we have to prove ourselves, especially if we've taken historic time off work, if we feel as if we're letting people down by cancelling appointments. When we are feeling well, we kind of really try to push ourselves and overperform because we feel like we should be making up for stuff in our minds. So if you've kind of got that mindset as well, it can be really difficult to say no to people, especially over Christmas, because everybody's so excited, everybody's so hyped, and it is a lovely time of year. But it is absolutely okay to say no. Plans change. You feel as if you're letting people down. You feel as if people will begrudge the fact that you need your quiet time and you need to say no, but absolutely, it's absolutely fine. And the more you practice saying no, the more liberating it will feel. And actually, the impact on your symptoms is incredible as well. So I know from my own body, and I've written here, I was really worried. We had one family party in particular there was a lot of emphasis put on it, and it was just as my symptoms were flaring. It was just as my bleed was happening. My fatigue was incredibly triggered, if that's the right word. I was in a lot of pain, the bloating, and I just didn't have the energy to go, and I was worried about saying no. And I absolutely knew that my husband would understand, but it was the wider audience, the wider family. But actually, as soon as I sort of spoke to my husband, as soon as I sort of said, no, I really can't do it, I don't think I could do it, and he was completely understanding straight away, all of that anxiety, the pressure left my body, and actually the symptoms started to improve just by saying no, just by taking that sovereignty and that autonomy. So it can actually be not just empowering, but it can actually have a positive knock-on effect to the symptoms. And just as a byline to that as well, even if it does have a positive impact on your symptoms, even if you do start to feel a little bit better, honour that no. So don't feel tempted to turn around and say, do you know what, actually I feel a little bit better. Because the fact that you said no was you honouring your body's boundaries. It was honouring what your body's telling you. Just because you feel a little bit better doesn't mean that your body's now ready to do whatever the thing was that you said no to. Pushing through, especially around Christmas and around time where your support system is possibly changing, your support system might not even be there during this period. So honour your boundaries, honour your no's, and don't feel that, and that means as in no, as in the word no, not honour your no's as in your sinusy no's, but honour where you've said no and stick to that, because just because you feel a little bit better doesn't mean that your body is better. So in terms of my symptoms, I had a bleed in between Christmas and New Year. It was on time. It was relatively, surprisingly maybe, okay. I had a lot of bloating, like I say, a lot of inflammation just before in the run-up, and that caused a lot of pain into my hip, down my legs. So again, for those of you thinking, I actually had somebody ask me the other day whether hip pain could be brought on by endometriosis, and absolutely, you can get hip pain as part of your cycle, and you don't even have to have endometriosis to have deferred pain or pain in different areas other than your immediate womb area. So I had pain in my hip, pain in my lower back, pain shooting down my leg, aching all over. And I had this conversation the other day again with another client. Quite often when you're struggling with inflammation and bloating to the extent that you do get with things like endometriosis and fibroids and things, your pain levels are different. How your body handles pain is very, very different. So I've worked with some women who, during their inflammation flare-ups, can't even stand to be touched on the arm because it just sends shockwaves down the body. So again, honour that feeling. It's not necessarily that you're getting pain all over your body. It's just that your body's responding differently. Your nerves, your nervous system are responding differently, and those messages that are being sent to your brain feel a little bit more urgent than normal. And that's what I was experiencing. So I was experiencing tenderness right the way through my body, increased sensitivity to touch, not necessarily to light or to taste, but definitely to touch. Then when the bleed started, I had 1 day of old blood. And then after that, so by old blood, I mean sort of darker blood, that more kind of stagnant, we call it stagnation in Chinese medicine, but that more stagnant energy, that more kind of darkish, sometimes almost brown, almost grey blood, maybe some clotting. And I'm going to talk about clotting in a later episode. Don't want to talk about it yet. This is where I struggle to maintain reading from my notes rather than adding in expertise or knowledge that I've had since then around my own cycle. But so increased clotting, all of those kind of stagnant symptoms, maybe slightly irony smell to it. So I had 1 day of that kind of old blood shedding, and then after that it was pretty textbook. It was pretty clear fresh blood, bloating reduced, and I went from feeling quite, I don't know if anxious is the word, but quite kind of on edge. I suppose anxious is the word, but yeah, I went from feeling quite anxious to feeling quite steady, feeling quite grounded and quite happy. Then, so as I was writing these notes, so as the appointment would have happened, so that first week of January, had I been my client and had I been interviewing myself, for want of a better word, I would have said that I could tell that ovulation was approaching. So I've said here in my notes, I can tell that ovulation is approaching. My pain is coming back. My pain is returning. The bloating's returning. The sensitivity in my arm, in my left arm, for some reason, that could actually just, well, no, that's retrospective. So we'll leave that. Sensitivity in my left arm, I noticed the morning of writing the notes. And this new year energy, I've actually put this new year energy is demanding more than my system has in me at the moment. So as a practitioner, if I was kind of sitting opposite myself, I'd kind of delve into that a little bit more. But suffice to say for this podcast, this pattern of symptoms, this trajectory of flaring slightly around ovulation in the run up to ovulation, then flaring in the bleed, that's noticing patterns, that's noticing triggers, that's noticing how your body's responding. So it's not a panic, it's not any grounds to think that your health is getting worse again. It's just recognizing this cyclical pattern. When we notice this cyclical pattern, that's when we have the complete power, complete control, that we are able to manage our symptoms. So I know a lot of women who think that, or who feel that if they've had a good period and they then go on to have, and I've put good period in inverted commas, if they have a good period, then they go on to have a more troublesome, a more symptomatic cycle next time, that they feel as if their health is getting worse again, that they're regressing. But actually, it could be something else. It could be that they're ovulating from a different side. It could be that their stress levels have increased. It could be that they're just doing something that triggers them more often this cycle. And as soon as you can understand that, as soon as you see and recognise that, that's when you can start to avoid the triggers. That's when you can start to really treat yourself and treat your symptoms before they become an issue. So on this first appointment back in clinic, I'd recognised that I had symptoms around the bleed. I'd recognised that the symptoms were starting to come back as I got closer to ovulation. And I'd reassured myself as a practitioner that this is no reason to panic. Yes, and I've put here, I can actually feel the cyst, endometrioma, question mark. I can actually feel it on my right-hand side, and the inflammation around it is excruciating when pressed. So as a practitioner, I'd kind of probably say, stop pressing it then, but obviously in much kinder words. But I'm recognising things. I'm recognising where my pain is. I'm recognising the kind of pain I'm having, and I'm recognising this cycle. So like I say, as a practitioner, I would say, look, this is expected. This is perfectly acceptable. This is great data. We're really understanding how your endometriosis flare is showing up now. We're seeing these cycles and we're seeing how these are presenting. And the symptoms are replicating themselves. It appears that the symptoms are replicating themselves at the bleed and at ovulation. And not everybody is the same. So some women have different symptoms at ovulation that they do at the bleed. Some people have different or no symptoms at one or the other of those. Everybody's body is different, which is why it's really important to understand how your endometriosis shows up within your body. But for me at this point in time, these symptoms were the same at bleed as ovulation. I was getting 2 spikes, 2 peaks per cycle. And I just want to reflect a little bit on New Year's Eve, because like I say, as a practitioner, I would have delved into kind of the energy side of it a lot with a client. So around New Year's Eve, so just after New Year's Eve, so sort of coming out of the bleed has long finished. Stress levels are quite high. There'd been a few things happening that had just spiked. Anxiety, not necessarily anxiety, but just those pressures, those expectations. I know that my body, I'm one of these people who will get through something, and then when I'm at the other side, that's when I'll start to feel everything. So physical injury, illnesses, anxiety, something stressful event, I will literally use that adrenaline to power through and to perform really well. I always said at work, I always need a tight deadline. I always need a bit of pressure to perform really well. But then when it's over, that's when my body just goes, ugh, and that's why I get ill. So we used to joke, because every time I sort of stopped exams, every time I had holidays at work, I find myself getting ill. And that's because my body just goes, ugh. My immune system's shot because I've been pushing through. Just because I know it doesn't mean I respond to it all the time, because we are all gloriously human. But this is how my psyche and my body respond. So New Year's Eve, around the time of New Year's Eve, there was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of plans that weren't necessarily going to plan. There was a lot of panicky energy I've written here. I don't remember it being panicky energy, which is something that's quite, and actually on reflection, that's quite interesting, because I don't remember it being panicky, but that's clearly how I was feeling in the moment. I had a sudden body swell, and I do remember this. So I woke up one morning feeling absolutely fine. Morning was absolutely fine. And then in the afternoon, I actually had to change into a skirt that's 2 sizes bigger than the leggings I was wearing in the morning. I was getting stressed about New Year's Eve because, this was actually on New Year's Eve itself. I was getting stressed about what do I wear. The more stressed I was getting about not being able to fit into my clothes, the more I was bloating. So I'd got an outfit planned that I couldn't fit into. So I went to outfit B, and because I was still stressing, still getting anxious and not in control at this point, again, the bloating happened even worse, and I couldn't get into outfit B. So now I'm panicking. What do I wear? I was stressing about food and drink, because when I'm bloated, when my stomach is reacting like that, then I do respond differently. So normally I'm fine with gluten, normally I'm fine with dairy, but I know that when my stomach is in that much distress, I use that word, when it's in that much distress, then I can react differently to gluten-free. So I planned my drinks. I decided, and I love a real ale, I decided I wasn't going to have beer, so I stuck to whiskey and ginger. And I thought ginger's fabulous because it's settling my stomach as well. So I planned that out. I planned the drinks I was going to have. I planned the food that I was or wasn't going to have. And I started to take control back. I started to ease off the pressure I was feeling. I started to ease off the anxiety. And I've written here informed self-trust, which is something that I try and empower my clients to do. And this is exactly what I mean when I talk about informed self-trust. So it's trusting my body knows, it's trusting that I'm interpreting the symptoms or the signals that my body is sending me. And it's trusting myself to take that control and do what my body needs at the time. It is okay, and I've put here, adaptation isn't failure. So it's okay if you need to change your plans, or if you need to do things slightly differently in order to stick to your plans. That's absolutely fine. It's not a failure. It's actually a massive achievement to listen to yourself and listen to your body and successfully do that informed self-trust. So after New Year's Eve, we did New Year's Eve, had a great time. So the symptoms started really flaring after that as I'm getting closer and closer to ovulation. So we're doing, so I've got a little list here, Reiki on my tummy every day, gentle meditations, foot reflexology, avoiding full tummy massage because I tried it and I've said here, body says no. So I didn't do that. So we're just doing Reiki, reflexology, hydration, really, really important. I can feel myself getting more dehydrated the more the bloating kicked in. I also got anxious because I was running out of the herbal medicine. And I did actually run out before this appointment, in inverted commas. And I realised that I wasn't creating enough space to counteract my triggers. So I had to take a step back because I was just getting caught up in the energy, caught up in the panicky, as I wrote earlier, panicky vibes and panicky energy. So I wasn't creating enough space for myself to counteract the triggers that were happening. I wasn't organising myself into safety, I've written here. So I wasn't feeling safe, and that's key. And I didn't realise this when I read the notes before I came on to record the podcast. Safety is key. You cannot heal if you don't feel safe. I wrote a blog, and I don't know if it will have gone out. Probably, yes, it will. Of course, it will have gone out by the time that this podcast said. But I wrote a blog a couple of weeks ago about how if you're not feeling safe, then you can, like this new year, new you kind of vibe, you can make changes if you're not feeling safe. But actually new habits don't stick. You need safety if you're going to create a safe space to heal. And you can't heal from a place of fear. And I wasn't giving myself that safe time. I wasn't giving myself enough of that safe space to be able to respond effectively to my body. And that just shows how, even though I've got all the tools that I know that I need to manage my endo, I've been doing it for however many years, 20 plus years, even though I have the knowledge of my body, I have the knowledge of the symptoms, the triggers, I have the knowledge of the self-care and the external support I need to manage it all. It's amazing how quickly and how easily that regulation can slip because we are human. And I think that when I work with women, and I see this so often, and this for me is a harsh reminder of just how difficult it is to be my client, or to be anybody's client, to be struggling with endometriosis or anything that's very, very similar. You can have all of the tools, you can have the knowledge, and you can be happily muddling through life, and suddenly things hit, and that's fine because we are all human. Healing, I say this all the time, healing isn't linear, and you're going to have bad days, you're going to have bad cycles. And if anything that I've taken from this Betwixtmas time, it's that actually it's so easy to put yourself back on the back burner, to put your needs last, not in a bad way. I wasn't being a martyr about it, but it's just so easy for these things to slip. And as soon as you recognise that, as soon as you think, hang on, I need to create more safety in my life, I need to create more peace, I need to create more calm, I need to give myself that safe time and safe space just to do a bit of self-regulation. That's the key to it. It's not that these things aren't going to happen. It's not that these triggers aren't going to happen. It's not that these symptoms aren't going to return. It's knowing that you just need some time and some resources to be able to get back on top of it. So this flare was actually quite a bad flare. It seems to be the worst flare I've had since I've been managing this general flare-up. And the body was telling me clear messages. The body was saying, hang on, you've got to listen to me here. This is important. I was having so I've written again, I've just done a bullet point list here. Widespread aching, deep fatigue, stairs feeling like a mountain. I'd forgotten about that as well. It's amazing, isn't it, how you're writing notes at the time and you go back and it just feels completely different. But I'd just forgotten how much effort it took just to climb the stairs. My body was saying enough. So I took the decision. Everybody else went out. So this was a couple of nights before this appointment would have happened. This was the family event. It was a post-New Year family catch up. I didn't want to say no, but I ended up just saying, look, I can't do it. My symptoms are flaring so much. I've had enough. I need to be calm. Everybody else went. There was no drama. Everybody was absolutely fine. They were all completely understanding. No drama, just genuine concern, not overdone concern, just, yeah, no worries. I hope you're feeling better soon. Just really lovely, gentle, what's the word? Acceptance, I suppose. And I stayed home. Within half an hour of everybody being out of the house, I was in my pyjamas, I'd had a quick shower, and I had a pizza ordered. And I just watched films, and then everybody came home and we had a laugh about what had happened. And that reset actually really, really helped. I felt so much better. My symptoms started to redact. As soon as, to be fair, like I said, as soon as I said no, I could feel lighter in my body. And just doing all those things. I also did a bit of a Reiki meditation, and I've put here, and I'd forgotten all of this. I did a Reiki meditation. I journaled some affirmations. I thanked myself for giving myself this time and this space. And I reminded myself that I had nothing to achieve and nothing to prove to anybody in that time, in that moment. The next morning, I woke up feeling a lot better. I've just put not cured but shifted. So my symptoms had definitely improved. My bloating had reduced, and I could tell there was a huge shift in my body just by taking that time out, that however long it was, 6 hours of time, just to be safe and to be calm. So the reflection from today's episode, from today's appointment, today in inverted commas, symptoms are communication. They're not punishment. Quite often we can feel as if we've let our bodies down, or the symptoms are at the point where we've done something wrong, and actually they're not. The symptoms are telling us that it's time to take action. And if we listen, it doesn't matter whether we've had symptoms for 2 weeks, 2 years, 2 hours. If we listen at some point, then that's that cycle breaking. That's your body learning that you're held, even if you're holding yourself, that you're being held. Symptoms are not permanent. Symptoms respond to state. They respond to the state you're in, the state where you are. The symptoms responded so quickly when I decided I was going to say no to the family party, and in the act of saying no, in the time I was by myself, I did things that I knew would help as well. I created a safe state, and the symptoms responded to that. Conscious shifts matter, so they don't have to be perfect. You don't have to. So even if I'd have said, look, I'm going to just go for an hour. So one of the options I was toying with was saying, look, I'll come for an hour, but I can't stay. I'm too tired to stay for the night. That would have been fine. That would have been okay. It wouldn't have been as beneficial as me just saying no completely, and I probably still would have suffered with symptoms the next day. I wouldn't have been as shifted, as you will, than I was. But even if they're imperfect, shifts matter, and noticing shifts matters even more. Some changes are quick, so some changes can feel instant. That lightness that I felt when making the decision, and then when telling people the decision, the lightness that came with that was instant. And some of my symptoms did abate just from that lightness. Some take longer, so the bloating took a few more days to really settle. My bowels took a few more days to really settle. Your body is responsive, even if it takes a lot longer for some symptoms to reduce than others. Your body is still responding, and it's listening and learning from you. So the more you listen to your symptoms, the more your body responds well. And I've just put here, when I change how I am, when I change how I'm being, my symptoms change too. Not instantly, not magically, but reliable. So if you are listening to this and some of this resonates, I hope that it has helped. If you did struggle between Christmas and New Year, then don't view it as a failure. You view it as data, view it as learning, view it as your body telling you. If your symptoms flared, then it doesn't necessarily mean that your overall progress or your overall health took a backward step, because healing isn't linear. And this is all information. There's no judgment in any of this. So if we start to look at this as a project, if we start to look at this as data, you take the judgment out of it, and everything becomes interesting. Everything becomes a learning point or something to trigger something else. and you take the judgment out. There's no self-blame, there's no self-criticism, it's all just data. So I invite you to stay with me for next week's episode, which again will be a look back on what would have happened, in inverted commas, next week had I done the appointment at the same time, because after this session, this is where I got really ill and I couldn't talk. So next week's episode again will be a retrospective look. So I hope you can join me. Until then, take care. Thank you very much for listening to this episode. I hope that it's helped and at the very least have given you hope and some solace that you're not alone in your own endometriosis journey. I'd like to thank Chris Collins for my theme tune. It's called Kindness, which I thought represented exactly what I wanted to walk this journey with. If you would like my help, if you would like any more information on my services, then you can check out my website on halcyonwomenhealth.com/women. And if you would like to take advantage of my free symptom tracker and a discount on the endometriosis workbook, then you can find that in the show notes. Thank you for listening.